Good morning, everyone. I'll go ahead and get started since it is 9:45. Um, we're going to talk a little bit today about strategies for coaching in the virtual setting. And then I did add a little bit of information about how we can support teachers in supporting parents, which is something that I've gotten a lot of questions about recently from some of the coaches that I was helping last year. So if anybody has never been to one of my sessions before, I'm Corinne Connor, a staff developer here at the IU. I specifically work in mathematics and literacy, but in the past 6 months or so, I have really broadened a lot of what I do, including instructional coaching and a lot of equity and data work that we are doing here with districts. And I also just recently became a trainer for the International Institute for Restorative Practices. So if anybody knows anything about restorative justice or have heard that term, that is something that we are offering here at the IU because Phyllis and I are both trained to be trainers, and we will be starting our first session. It's a 4-day training on September 10th and 11th. And then we have the last 2 in October. So if you're interested in any of that, please reach out. Here's my email, my office number, and you can follow me on Twitter. Okay. I'm sure you guys have seen these, so I'm not going to spend 100 hours talking about them. For me, the biggest one is the last one, assuming good intentions. No one becomes a teacher because we want to be a millionaire. So we all do it because we genuinely love kids and we just want to make this world better by creating better little people. So I thank all of you for any work that you do because it is so important to help teachers become better. So your Act 48 credit hours, they are due July 31st. I'm sure you've heard again in any session that you have been in that you must fill out the evaluation that is linked into the session matrix. It is your Act 48 hours will be awarded upon completion of that evaluation. And again, it is due on the 31st. So our outcomes for today are very basic. I really want to make this more of a discussion session than me kind of talking at you. So we're just going to talk about a few things, go through a couple slides, and then I'm going to stop the sharing of the Google slide deck, and then I just kind of want to talk. So we will examine what coaching could look like virtually. We're going to discuss some strategies, and then we're going to analyze ways to help parents navigate online instruction. I'm not sure which district everybody is from. I do want to get that information from you later. If you would like to drop it in the chat, please feel free, but I want to get a sense of where everybody is from and what your district is rolling out for the fall as a plan. So a few questions to ponder as we think about this virtual world that we are now in. What did coaching look like for you when schools faced extended closure? So in March, when everything just stopped, what did it look like? What did it sound like? What did it feel like for you to suddenly not be in a classroom, helping your teachers face to face? What did you do for the rest of the year? Did you keep a virtual log with them? Did you plan to meet with them? Did you work on any of the goals that maybe you had set earlier in the year? What is your plan for coaching as we begin this school year? So if you are a district that is alternating days, have you talked to any of your teachers about what's that going to look like for your partnership? And how can we as coaches lead and support teachers remotely? Again, depending on what your school district is choosing, this could look different for every single person in this room. Okay, so as we think about what distance coaching looks like, generally people are going to say, well, how is it different? Well, I'm going to challenge you to think about, instead of how is it different, how is it the same? How could we keep some of the same interest and the same information flowing back and forth? How can we keep that relationship between coach and teacher? And how can we cultivate this new normal to become what we want it to be in a virtual world? Okay, so again, we want to think about these things, and then we're going to open up some discussion. So I want you to take just a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes, maybe like 45 seconds, and think about, how is coaching going to be the same for you versus how it's going to be different? And then I'm going to ask to unmute, and hopefully people can share out their thoughts. So I'm going to stop the sharing for this for a minute. Okay, and then feel free to unmute yourself. If you don't want to share your video, because I know when I'm at home and I have like my kids running around or my husband or anybody, I sometimes don't like to turn my video on. But if you're comfortable, please feel free to turn your video on. But if not, just please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, say where you're from, and how do you think we're going to work this out this year? Hi, Stacy.
Hi, I teach at Dover High School, and I'm a learning support teacher. And in the spring, it was difficult at times because not only was I co-teaching math 3 periods, so my co-teacher and I had to work together virtually, and we did a lot of Zooms together, which worked for the kids that wanted to join. But I also had my learning support roster or caseload that I had to cover. And it was difficult because I would get so many other teachers emailing me or adding me as an admin on their Schoology. And then I was doing Zooms like a couple hours a day outside of the 3 co-teaching. I was Zooming learning support kids that needed extra help. So it was crazy. There were days that I was Zooming a good 8 hours plus doing other stuff, writing IEPs, doing IEP meetings, things like that. So that's why I kind of picked this one to sit in on, because with the virtual aspect of a learning support teacher, it got crazy in the spring. And I'm hoping right now, Dover's planning on giving the parents full coming back, full where they're home, but they're doing our stuff through Schoology and Zooming and videos. They also have the option of Dover Cyber, and they also have the option of coming in 2 days and being at home 3 days, still doing our stuff.
Wow, that is a lot going on. Well, and hopefully one of my hopes for today is that through opening this discussion, maybe we can all kind of give each other ideas on, you know, what we have had work for us, and, you know, maybe what those challenges were and how, you know, you've thought about it over the summer, and maybe what changes we're going to make. So anyone else? I saw a couple people unmute themselves. So
okay, me.
Yes.
I'm a special ed teacher, emotional support in Gettysburg School District at the middle school, and for me, it was kind of very hectic, and I should say very challenging, to the fact that being my kiddos are emotional support, and on a regular basis, you know, our things were like, let's get the work done, you know, and, you know, make sure we're up to par with everything. And with the exception of maybe 3 of my students, none of the other ones were not as technologically familiar And to be honest with you, neither am I to do a lot of all these things, online, with all kinds of stuff. So it was very challenging. We did Zoom every day for all 4 core subjects for me because my kiddos needed that. So I was on all day long, every day, and then you have, and then had, what do you call it? The access, like they could access me at other, still whenever we were not Zooming for the core subjects. And it's kind of hectic because you're trying to get everybody in at the same time. In class you can accommodate by doing, you have little groups that you can go into, because whether one kid's in 8th grade and they're doing math, they're not doing math at the same levels because they're all, at different levels. I'm sure everybody that's a special ed teacher know that you can have 5 kids in a math class in like say for 7th grade, but none of them are at 7th grade level. Some of them are 4th grade, some of them are 3rd, some of them are 6th, and nobody's on. So it was very challenging. And then other than that, I had to do, I was at it with my kids that were out on other class, school loads, like for the tech department, which is like, oh, that was the worst part, because I had, the rotation for my kids, they had to be in tech, like ComTech and tech ed and stuff. And they were given projects to do, on that. And anytime any of the other tech kids put in, sent in a project, it would come up into my emails, and it was so inundating. It was just overwhelming. So I'm hoping that this year it's going to be a little different. We're going to, for what we've been told, and they were supposed to vote on that, is that we will be doing, 6th grade will be in all day long, any learning support that will be, within, that will be there. 6th grade will be every day, all day. 7th and 8th will rotate, but all of the kids who are in a learning support classroom will be at the school all the time. So, that means I'll have all my kiddos. I'm hoping that's what it totally means for us, that they'll be in class. I mean, they do have the option to not to be there, but I know that, from talking to my parents, they before, the ones that I had, the ones that are coming back, they prefer their kiddos to be in, in the classroom where they will get a lot of the one-on-one and stuff. So I'm hoping it's going to be all that. And we're going to be using Canvas, which I'm kind of like, because it's a new program that they put in this year. So we've left the program that we had before. So now we're going into Canvas, which is another new thing on top of it. So I'm kind of nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. I prefer being in the classroom with my kiddos than, doing this.
Yeah. And did you say, is your district 1-to-1, like where every student has their own device?
Yes, every student that had their own device and now they're modifying the devices. They're giving them new devices, they said, but every one of my kiddos, whether they were in class, whether they, they all were given a Google Chrome, and there was another one. Some of the kids like it. I'm trying to think what the device was called, but some of the kids had a different version instead of a Chromebook. And I think it's the Chromebook that they don't like. So I'm hoping that, they'll have a different device, because some of my kiddos are not, they're, my 6th graders last year, they just were not that familiar because they weren't used to having that many devices, so they were just, no matter how much we practiced in class, I've had where I had to, send little notes and stuff like that, and special little things on how to get on the computer, how to get back into things, and and they had the passwords they had to remember. You had to remember the password to get on, like basically, that was, whether it was their lunch ID, the year they graduated, all these different passwords to get on, and although I had given it to them, they I had given them physically in packets, and then also sent to the parents in an email the kids were like, well, we don't know how to do this, so we had to figure out for the first time, let's work on you getting on the computer before you can even be able to do work on the computer. And like I said, my kids, the ones that were not familiar with it, and they had regular ed teachers, and now they were getting all this stuff online, they were just like overwhelmed. And then I had some who were just sped right along. I mean, it was just amazing. I was, for the lack of a better words, blown away at how much work some of my kids did on the computer that would not do in classroom. Go figure.
Is your position at your school include being an instructional coach at all for?
No.
Okay. Do you guys have that type of position at your school?
They've created a couple different ones, and they also have, they created another one where it's like you go in for extra help. It was supposed to be for like a behavior type thing, but I've noticed, because I usually don't get out of my room because I have kids in there all day. I don't have like up until last year we finally got a lunch break, but prior to that we didn't have one. So I didn't get out of my room unless my kids were in trouble or I had to run to the office, and that was just for me, But they've created the room where the kids are usually in trouble or lower, they go in together and they get special instruction in there. I've noticed that. But for this year, I've gotten word that they have brought other people on to help. I think we do have one or two instructional coaches, but they brought somebody else on to kind of help out with other kiddos, but not necessarily like say specifically my kiddos in my room, because we're self-contained, but my kids do go out and stuff, for other classes. We try to put them out as much as possible, as long as they can be successful, but that's basically it at this point.
Okay. Anybody else want to share anything about what their thoughts about instructional coaching, what it's going to look like for this upcoming school year versus what it looked like last year, especially as we faced the pandemic, and I'm sure a lot of things changed for your relationships with your coaches, or if you are a coach, your teachers. Sorry, Matt,
I think
go ahead.
in some ways, coaching really will change virtually. Having done some virtual coaching versus and doing face-to-face coaching, we would have to really pay attention. One is where the class is. Is it going to be on Zoom or a Hangout, or is it face-to-face? And being willing to enter into that class as an observer.
Yeah.
And being physically present, because many times when we are in this virtual world, we're not always as mentally present in a virtual class as we could be. Then we would be there and really understanding where the teachers are. So a coach that normally would just work on how do you deal with students may also have to teach some, as Tanya said, some skills and the digital literacy to build so that the teacher can, or at least have a playbook to do so.
Right. And I know there have been teachers that they're veteran teachers, 25 years in the classroom, and then this happened and they had to reach out to instructional coaches and say, help me, I feel like I'm a first-year teacher again. Not because they weren't using some form of educational technology, but it became overwhelming and they were inundated with how much information they suddenly had and what they should do. So coaches' jobs right now kind of hang in that balance of, helping maybe some people that they weren't expecting to help, but then also maybe some folks that they thought they had to help with in, classroom management techniques or this, that, and the other might be helping them with something different. So it can certainly change. And Tanya, I agree with your other comment of the medium of how we are doing coaching is really going to be, or should be, one of our differences. So I'm going to share my screen again here. Okay. So I found this really great article, which I linked, I think later in the presentation, that had 4 tips for coaching remotely. So we've talked about this first one, reaching out regularly. Okay, just that relationship piece that's so important. You know as well as I do that the biggest hurdle we have to cross is that piece of trust. So if they can trust you as the coach, or you as the teacher can trust your coach, and you're still keeping that line of communication open regularly, that's going to be a really huge piece to this puzzle. Okay, and again, the medium is just different. Are you meeting with them weekly? Are you meeting with them bi-weekly? However you planned on doing it before, keep that up. We just might have to change how you actually meet. Maybe creating online PLCs. So if you're creating a professional learning community around the digital interface, if you're creating a PLC that's around classroom management techniques virtually versus face-to-face. And some districts, again, if you're going completely face-to-face, these things will happen just as they did before. But if you are blended, or if you're only going back remotely, then we know that we have to change the medium of how we're working this for teachers and for coaches. Yes, collaborative tools, absolutely. And reinventing the coaching cycle. So if any of you have been in any sort of PLC before, where you've talked about maybe Jim Knight's work, or if you were in the instructional coaching that Matt and Nicole did this past year on the impact cycle, when we're talking about reinventing that cycle, we're talking about, you know, thinking about what are your goals? How can we best reach those goals through this new system? And again, it's not a new system, it's just a different system. We just want to make sure that we're meeting people where they are, and however our school districts are working, we just want to make sure that we're supporting the same way we were before. And lead as a learner. Everybody, every teacher, every educator, we all talk about this being staff developers. It's almost a gift that we have, because part of our job is to constantly be learning new things, and giving that to other people is amazing. Just in the last few years of doing instructional coaching myself and then becoming a staff developer, I have learned so much information, and I just feel like I want to give that information to people all the time. Sometimes it's not even desired, but you know, it happens. You're like, hey, did you ever think about when you're in a conversation with another mom at soccer practice who might be a teacher? So that kind of stuff happens all the time. But you know, having that gift of being a constant learner every day is just awesome, and using that to your benefit as a coach. So some ways to maintain relationships through this virtual piece. Okay, again, this works with teachers, works with students, can be used either way. This is the reaching out piece, just saying hello, asking how you doing. You know, this mental health piece of this, the self-care piece, is extremely important. The teachers and the students are feeling it. everybody's in the feels about this. Okay, the importance of maintaining routines and procedures. And this is not only just for teachers in the classroom. Like if you're used to doing a morning meeting and you are now on an A/B schedule, still do your morning meeting. If you're an instructional coach, if you meet with your people weekly, still meet with them weekly. Still maintain whatever procedure and routine you had before. Again, just change your medium. Reimagine temperature checks. If you're talking a Zoom call and you just simply say, does everybody see the reaction button at the bottom? Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling, a 5 today. If you're feeling a 1, maybe put in the chat privately to me that you're not feeling it and you just need, some time to maybe talk and maybe think some things through. That's a nice way to get a feeling of how your teachers are feeling about what's going on, and maybe they just need to have a separate meeting with you to talk some ideas through. And yes, polls on Zoom are great for temperature checks. Thanks, Matt. That's also a really good point. Have virtual turn-in talks. We've been doing these Zooms for professional development. We've been creating breakout rooms, okay, and asking people to share information in the breakout room, okay? And if you only have a few people in there, maybe just break them into pairs or triads and just have them kind of share in like a virtual PLC situation and say, all right, let's talk about whatever said topic might be. The other idea I saw is what they call virtual tables, which are just groups. So you're putting kids or you're putting teachers into groups, and again, just having them talk about whatever you would normally have them talk about. But the real thing here is, again, with that relationship, we have to talk. We've got to communicate. So I read this article that was in Edutopia, and I believe, again, I think I linked all the resources at the end. Traits to cultivate for coaches: courage, consistency, and joyfulness. So let's think about that for a minute. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and let's chat about those 3 traits. Okay, courage, consistency, and joyfulness. What do you think about that? Anybody have any thoughts on those? I think they were 3 really good traits. Matt's masking up. I'm not sure what's happening over there, Matt.
I'll say something.
Okay.
I think when I think of courage, especially, have the courage to try different things or to approach people that you never would have approached before, and to exchange ideas or to introduce new ideas or things like that. As far as consistency, like be consistent, follow up with everything, whatever, what you set up, make sure you consistently do it. So people are not, thinking there, because virtual, even though like one day you might not have anybody, say if you're on virtual, yet somebody does not show up, be there, just have it there. Sometimes, you might not have anybody come in for whatever they might need, for a few days. And then the day you think, oh, I'm going to put it on again, but I'm not, there they are, and it's the person that you would never expect it. They're there and they need something. So that's the consistency. Like just be there, so they know that no matter what, if they turn that button on to be, you'll be there. That's kind of a thing, especially we're thinking virtual, coming on a virtual thing. And as far as joyfulness, I mean, nobody wants a sourpuss. Just be joyful, be happy, and mean it, and people can read, fake. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, from the tiniest little kid to the oldest person who's half blind, they'll know that when you're fake, they got your number, you know, and nobody likes that. So I think that's why some of those things are important that for us to have and to practice on a daily basis.
Agree. And with that joyfulness piece, it made me think of being a parent as well. You know, we're trying to, no matter how you feel about how schools are reopening or what's going on, you can't bring that to your child and say, you know, the wrong thing because you don't want them to have negative thoughts about what's going to happen with school. You don't want to increase any anxiety that they already might have about that. So we've been working on, you know, mindfulness techniques in our house for the last couple of months, but one of them is just, you know, joy. Just wake up every day and say, you know what? Today's a great day to have a great day. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's important. And it is really important to be that way as a leader, as a coach, as a teacher, as a parent, as a child yourself, you know, even to your parents that, you know, if they're struggling through this. So anybody else have any thoughts on courage, consistency, and joy?
I would just add that consistency is a comfort. When we know what we can always expect, if we know that, like the office hours that Eleni was talking about, or the fact that you'll always be there, may not always use you, but knowing that that consistency is there, knowing that whenever I come as a teacher to ask for help, what I get in response is, absolutely, let's dig in, let's push our sleeves up, not are you serious? You know, really our attitude is so critical to this process in helping teachers, you know, learn whatever it is they don't know. So I think consistency is sometimes underrated, or, you know, not mentioned or underestimated.
Yeah. And the courage to come to the table and ask the questions is really important. I mean, we don't want to ever make anybody feel, I mean, just when, like if you're a teacher, you don't want to act like they're dumb questions. There are never dumb questions, right? There's just more learning to be had. So stick to that consistency too, as far as like video yourself. You know, for those students that you know may have either access issues in their house, like if, you know, everybody's doing virtual learning all at the same time, you might need to video what your part of the lesson was and put that on your virtual platform so it's available to everybody. Okay, same thing as a coach. You know, if you're talking to some people and you know that maybe that online PLC people are missing, record it and make it available. Again, that's a consistency piece too, where you're making yourself available for all of your folks. So anybody else have anything that they want to share? All right. Just checking the chat. Yes, positivity is contagious. Woohoo! We love the positivity up here in the IU. Okay. So here's a couple of the resources that I found information on. Distance Learning Playbook. This is not just for teachers. This is also for admin, and it's for instructional coaches. There's all kinds of really cool stuff on this playbook. This is a choice board that I can actually click on it so you can see it. That was created, and it has a list of coaching responsibilities. This is one that this girl had created, but she did put it up as a resource and said, you know, please feel free to use this type of medium but it's just thinking about some of the things that an instructional coach does. And it's thinking about how can I now use this information and again, change my medium of how I'm still going to be helping my people out. The loneliness of coaching. This is an article that I thought was very interesting. And it just goes on to talk about how sometimes coaching can feel lonely in an educational world, but it's how we can kind of flip the script. And then this is designing lesson plans for online learning. I know that a lot of teacher prep programs now are moving towards a lesson plan that's called the 5 E's. A couple of my student teachers in the last few years had that model. And this is actually the 5E model, but it's on an online learning platform, how to help teachers make lesson plans for online class. So, okay, I have a little video here because I said the other thing that I wanted to talk about is how can you as coaches think about helping your teachers help parents? Because that's going to be that's a hard lift. You know, parents are kind of confused about what their role is here. So this was a cute little video that this girl made that I thought was nice. So I'm going to play this. Oh, wait. Let me make sure that my sound is on. There we go.
In today's video, 5 ways instructional coaches can support parents in a one-to-one learning environment. Hello coaches, welcome back to another 5-Minute Friday. My name is Kim, and today's video is part of a short mini-series on supporting technology-rich learning. We know that summer is a time when many teachers and coaches like to do a little bit of learning, but not everybody, and that's okay because these videos will be available year-round. We're doing a short summer learning series focused on how you as an instructional coach can support all stakeholders in your school community. We'll be highlighting ways that you can help teachers design technology-rich learning experiences, as well as opportunities to support parents in a one-to-one environment. We hope you enjoyed this short series, and if you have ideas for other series, let us know in the comments below. Today I'm going to talk about 5 ways that instructional coaches can support parents in a one-to-one learning environment. These 5 ways would work for any topic, but I'm using one-to-one learning because it's something that I'm really familiar with, but feel free to apply them to any other area of coaching expertise. The first way to help parents understand a one-to-one learning environment is to share the learning. There's lots of different ways you can help parents get a window into what's going on into the classroom. You can use a classroom blog or a classroom website so parents can see images, video, stories from what's going on in the classroom. Or you can do something that's wider across the whole school community using social media, maybe a tool like Twitter with a community hashtag that both students and parents and teachers can contribute to. And if you want something a little more closed, a little more private, you can do something like a group chat with the parents in your classroom, or even with multiple teachers and parents over a grade level. Of course, if you have a tool like Seesaw in elementary, that's a great way to get parents inside your classroom virtually. The second strategy is to educate parents, and I like to do this through regular coffee mornings because I think it's great when parents come back over time and get to know you as the coach a little more closely and kind of understand your perspective and what the school is trying to do in this one-to-one learning environment. If parents can come back time and time again, they start to really be able to ask more in-depth questions and understand at a deeper level the goal of the learning environment that you're creating at your school. If coffee mornings don't work, of course, you can offer evening events. You can even do something like an online course for parents if you have specific content that you want to share with them. For example, here at Aduro Learning, we actually have online courses and books for parents about one-to-one learning to help them understand why we use so much technology in our classrooms today. Whenever you do parent education, it's always great to have a central digital space somewhere online where parents can come back and see the resources that you shared. It can be a website, it can be a blog. Again, of course, it can be some kind of online class where you can actually post relevant articles, videos, and resources that you find that are appropriate for the parents in your school community, so they have that kind of one central place to find everything about this learning environment. Just like you would do for a classroom as a classroom teacher, you can do the same for all of the parents in your school community. The third strategy is to collaborate with parents. You can do this by creating community focus groups where you have parents, students, teachers, and leaders in a room together talking about this learning environment that you're trying to create and getting their insight into what's working and maybe what's not, and maybe the next direction you might want to take things in. You can start really simple by providing feedback surveys for parents and then sharing the results of those surveys. And then you can even build up to having parents design programs for other parents or even programs within the school to help support this learning environment that you're creating. Personally, I love when we have parent-led after-school activities that take advantage of all of the multimedia resources, all of the digital resources that we have available for students, so parents can really understand the level of learning that can happen once you have access to all of these devices. A fourth strategy to support parents in a one-to-one learning environment is to connect parents to each other. One of the things that I think works really well is having a group of parents who support new parents to your community. So that way, new parents coming in can get a really good understanding of exactly what it's like to live and learn in a really highly connected community environment, and they can hear that from the parent perspective. Because of course, the school will do tons of things on that exact same topic, but it's always a little bit different when it's coming straight from the parents. The idea is to get parents to support parents in whatever way that works for your school. I mentioned earlier in number 1, share the learning, to have group chats. Well, this is another strategy where you can actually use those group chats to have parents support each other. And if you have specific, what I would call point parents in those group chats, you can almost have those parents be moderating those conversations. So you as the coach and you as the school can understand what parents are concerned about, kind of get them to share their feedback with you via that moderator. My fifth strategy to help support parents in a one-to-one learning environment is to celebrate learning, to find opportunities for primarily students, but also teachers, to share all of the great things that are happening in school because of this one-to-one learning environment. Things like student-led conferences, where you might have students sharing the great things that are happening in their classroom using a tool like Showcase Portfolios that students can actually go back to over time and share with their parents throughout the course of the year. And then, of course, you can provide assignments that involve parents. Seesaw is great for this, and so is a student-led blog or website where there's actually a task for students to work with their parents and get them to comment on or interact with the work that students are doing. So that was 5 ways that an instructional coach can support parents in a one-to-one learning environment or any other new modern learning environment for parents. They are, number 1, to share the learning. Number 2, to educate parents. Number 3, to collaborate with parents. Number 4, to connect parents to each other. And number 5, to celebrate learning primarily with students. Hopefully those 5 ways have given you some ideas to help support parents in your one-to-one learning environment. But if you have other ideas, please leave them in the comments below, because I'd love to hear what you are doing to help support parents in your dynamic learning environment at your school. If you're taking time this summer to do a little professional learning and you're focusing in on how you can best support your entire stakeholder community, from students and teachers to parents and school leaders, check out our book, Your Connected Classroom, a practical guide for teachers. It has everything we use when we're working with all members of our school community to help them embrace technology-rich learning. We wrote this book for teachers, so it's full of practical tips and strategies exactly the way we would use them with our teachers as coaches. You'll have everything you need to support technology-rich learning in one book and the companion website that has tons of resources and practical downloads that you can use in your school community as soon as you get back to school. Plus, when you're done with the book, you can share it with another teacher or a school leader or maybe even a parent in your school community. Our book is available right now on Amazon in Kindle or paperback format. The link is in the description box below. Of course, we still have tons of great online learning opportunities for you and a practical freebie linked in the description box too. Please comment down below if you have a question or a...
I'll stop her just because she goes on for like another minute or so talking about some of her resources and whatnot. But please please feel free, if you want to watch the last minute of it, you can go back and access the slide deck through the session matrix. So again, here are some resources for parents that I'm sure most schools have put out lists that you guys can kind of give out, but there is an educational resource page where you can type in what grade level, what subject, and all kinds of information comes up there. There's a Google slide that's actually attached to this, or a Google sheet, excuse me, that has enrichment activities. Khan Academy is great. Newsella is good. Prodigy, Brain Pop, PBS Kids. I'm sure there's tons of other ones that we could put on there, but this is just a small list of how we can help parents help kids. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to open it up for any type of discussion. I know Matt has something to share with you guys about our instructional coaching series that we're doing this year. So let me stop sharing. Okay, and Matt, if you want to go first, and then we can open up discussion for a couple minutes before we are finished.
Really does help when you unmute.
Always.
One of the things that we are offering this year, and this is for a district level, if we have coaches, that we're working on improving coaching at a system level and having those deeper conversations with principals and administration about what coaching should and could look like in their group, in your school district, and in your schools. So this might be something that a school or a district wants to go into to really have that conversation. I put a link for the flyer in the chat, and you can send it to whomever you want. You can set using that link, and we will be willing to do it virtually, and we can meet with each group. And this also comes with one-on-one IU coaching. So our coaches come in and work with the school's coaches to do coaching more effectively. So, Corinne, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything that they want to put in about maybe what their plans are for this upcoming year, or anything at all that you want to talk about that's not related to COVID? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stacey. I'm sorry.
That's okay. One thing that has helped us, we had a committee for blended learning that was formed, and it's with a lot of teachers and our instructional advisors on it. Our person that runs our ILC, who does a lot of the technology, like for the kids and for us in the library, they've created Zooms that has been helping, because we use Schoology. And we were never forced to use it. It was always the tool we could use, but now 3 through 12 is being forced to use it this year. I've used it in the past, but man, I've been going to the Zooms at 9 o'clock Tuesdays and Thursdays recently, and the stuff I've learned, and like I said, our instructional coaches on that committee. So I just think, and everybody that's there is talking and helping, kind of like we're helping here, has made a big difference, because we're all just giving each other ideas and supporting and being there for each other. So that consistency that you talked about earlier of the support and being willing to help. And we have an older staff at the high school. I'm starting year 23, so a lot of us are in our 15 to 25, 30 years there. And just that consistency of knowing each other really helps.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button there for a minute. I changed the way that my screen was, and I was confused. I need some ed tech help. Matt, just kidding. Anybody else have anything that they would like to throw out to the group?
I was going to throw out to the group, I'm from Central, and we really use Schoology a lot. And that was a saving grace for us when we went to the distance learning. And I just wanted to share with Dover that we just had a meeting of what went well, what didn't go well with Schoology, and the piece that we felt that we needed kind of in service with our parents and back, you know, trying to get our parents on board and teaching the kids of how to use the messenger piece. Because a lot of us just kind of assumed that the kids understood to check the messages, and they really didn't, and nor did the parents. And we found that that needed to be part of our beginning of the year, kind of like a little workshop for that element, so they knew to go in there when we were giving feedback or giving information. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, thank you,
Carolyn,
Carol. Really important.
Carolyn, I agree. My daughter actually goes to Central.
Okay.
So being a Central parent and a teacher in another district, it made it a little easier for me. But I agree, one of the things our superintendent on her weekly Zooms have been telling us is use the first week of school to teach the kids where everything is in Schoology, what aspects in Schoology, where to find all that stuff. But I agree, Carolyn, the Schoology helped with my daughter being in Central of finding all the stuff and making everything in one place really helped for my students and my daughter.
And I think because it's a lot like Facebook, it made it more accessible to the parent generation. You know, kids in the generation now, they're so far past Facebook. Like, that's not even cool anymore. You know, it's Snapchat and Twitter and this, that, and the other. But, you know, for some of us who, I don't Snapchat, but, you know, my kid does. So I had to, you know, kind of look at it from that lens. It's like, what are they used to? If they're not used to that messaging, you know, they need to really be taught. So thank you so much for putting that out there. Matt?
One of the other things that I may suggest as we look towards next year is when you have coaches or you have teachers, coming up with a set of expectations of where things are going to be sent and how things are going to be sent from all of the teachers. So having a grade level collaborate on the messaging and where they're going to use the messaging so that we have a single stream of information to parents. Because one of the things that I heard a lot from people was that there was so much communication that the parents got lost.
Yes.
So being very cognizant of how much information we're putting out there and using just-in-time information instead of pushing a ton of information out for like 2 weeks, doing it periodically and being very streamlined and clear about our methods of communication, both to students and to parents.
Yes,
Because
I second that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, I agree, because as a parent, and Amy, you put this in here too, I was just overwhelmed and inundated with emails every day. And the district where my kids go to school, they're at 2 different buildings. So often I would receive the same message from one building, then from the other building. And they were, you know, it was like 40 emails a day for the first 2 weeks. And that's a lot. That is a lot to handle. And you're right, parents did stop reading and responding, because what do you even respond to? It was like nonstop. And in this situation, we're still unclear. We have plans on how we're going to go back, but who knows what's going to happen in a couple of weeks. You know, if there's another resurgence, we could possibly go completely back to online. So, you know, we're just kind of running along and just making sure that we can, you know, keep up with all the information. So anybody else have anything they want to share? Okay, so thank you so much for coming. And if anybody needs anything, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Matt or Dr. McCusker or Tanya Moret. Any of us can lead you in the right path if you're looking for some more information about coaching or some information about supporting parents. So thanks again and have a wonderful day. Matt?
I will also just put this last piece in is that we have a math coaching network. And I know that the IU also has a technology coaching network. So if you are a math coach or a technology coach, reach out to us. We'll get you in on those networks and you can start collaborating with your peers in other districts.
And we have a literacy network as well. And we open it up to not only teachers of reading, but also if you have reading specialists or any sort of intervention, any sort of like literacy coach as well, please feel free, reach out for that network too. So thanks again. And Carolyn, Matt will make sure that you are on the list. And just to point also that network meetings are IDEA funded through TAC funds. So there is no cost to your district. So please feel free to join us, and we'd love to have more people at the table. So thanks again. How do you get on the networks? So Stacy, if you want to email either me or Matt, we can throw our email into the chat and we can add you to the list and get you the flyer. Okay. Oh, Tanya already put my email and I put it too. So there we go. All right. So thanks again, guys. Have a wonderful Wednesday and enjoy the last day of our institute. Thank you.